Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a stack of research and analyzing, well, the single most consumed psychoactive substance on the entire planet.
We are talking about caffeine.
Exactly. I mean, something like 70% of adults are consuming this stuff every single day, in quantities that really do affect behavior. So our mission today is to go way beyond that morning energy jolt and dive right into the molecular pathways. We're looking at this really fascinating study that used the nematode C. elegans.
The tiny worm.
That's the one. It's, one of the most powerful systems we have for studying aging, and they used it to figure out how this very common substance might actually modulate longevity.
And it's so important because we already have these hints from human studies that caffeine has protective benefits. I mean, it's been linked with neuroprotection against diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And it's also inversely related to things like stroke and diabetes. But the how has always been a bit fuzzy.
So what's the prevailing theory?
Well, the main mechanism we know of is that at low levels, it acts as a blocker, an antagonist for adenosine receptors. Adenosine is that compound that builds up and makes you feel sleepy.
So caffeine just gets in the way of the sleepy signal.
Precisely. And so the big question this research dives into is whether that same familiar mechanism is actually the source of a much deeper, more fundamental shift in the aging process itself.
Okay, so let's get right into it and unpack the study's core observation. They found that caffeine can significantly extend the worm's life, but, and this is a big but, it came with a really strict condition.
Oh yeah. Dose is absolutely everything. It is not a straight line at all.
So more isn't better.
Definitely not. It's really a dual role.
Yeah.
And it all depends on the concentration. When they gave the worms these low to moderate amounts, we're talking 5 and 15 millimolar, they saw this incredible increase in median lifespan.
And what kind of increase are we talking about here?
It's staggering. So your standard control worm lives for about 15 days.
15, okay.
The worms that got the 15 millimolar dose of caffeine lived up to 31 days.
Wait, 31? They more than doubled their lifespans.
These literally more than doubled it. It is a massive effect, biologically speaking.
I mean, if you translated that to a human, you're talking about living past 150, 160 years old. That's not just a minor tweak. That suggests caffeine is hitting something really fundamental.
It is, but, and this is the kicker, if you think, okay, I'll just increase the dose for a bigger effect,
Yeah.
you hit a toxicity wall almost immediately.
So it turns bad quickly.
Very quickly. Higher concentrations, 30, 45, 60 millimolar, had the complete opposite effect. That highest dose, 60 millimolar, was so toxic, it reduced the median lifespan to just 1 day.
Wow.
And it completely stopped the larvae from developing at all. So there's this very, very narrow sweet spot for longevity.
That's fascinating. The right amount gives this huge benefit, but just a little bit more is lethal. But they also look at timing, right? I mean, did it matter when the worms got the caffeine?
Yes, and this is another crucial piece. They found that you need continuous exposure for life.
For life.
Yep. They tested that beneficial 5 millimolar dose at different stages. So if the worms only got it during their larval stage, their adolescence, or only from adulthood until they died, their lifespans didn't change.
So no different from the control group.
Exactly. To get that huge boost, the worms had to be exposed continuously from the very first larval stage all the way through their entire life.
Which suggests it's not just like repairing damage in old age, it's actively changing something in their development from the very start.
It's changing the fundamental programming.
Okay, so speaking of programming, whenever we see a longevity benefit that dramatic, there's almost always an energy trade-off. Nature doesn't really give a free lunch.
No.
And reproduction is incredibly costly energy-wise. So if these worms were living twice as long, what were they sacrificing to do it?
Well, looking at the phenotypes, there were 3 very clear consequences that all point to energy reallocation.
Okay.
First, they had delayed larval development. The control worms hit adulthood in 3 days. The worms on 5 millimolar caffeine, they took 4 days.
So everything's slowing down right from the start.
Exactly. And the higher dose delayed it even more. Second, the adult worms who were exposed to caffeine their whole lives were actually smaller. They had a reduced mean body length.
Smaller.
And third, and this is the classic longevity trade-off caffeine, caused a huge reduction in their reproduction. Their brood size was way down.
So they were laying far fewer eggs.
Far fewer. And laying eggs is, as you said, an incredibly energy-intensive process.
So you have delayed growth, smaller body size, and reduced fertility. I mean, that is the textbook definition of an energy conservation strategy.
It is. The takeaway is that by interfering with these really high-energy processes, caffeine seems to be forcing the worm to slow its whole metabolism down and just reallocate those resources toward maintenance and survival.
Which is really a key pillar of living longer.
The key pillar.
Okay, so that connects the physical changes to the longer life. Now let's get into the how, the molecular causes. We said earlier that caffeine blocks adenosine receptors in us. Did they find evidence that this is what's happening in the worms to make them live longer?
Yes, the data points very strongly in that direction, towards the purinergic system.
Okay, how did they test that?
So first, they just confirmed that adenosine by itself, the chemical caffeine blocks, is bad for lifespan. At a 10 millimolar concentration, adenosine significantly reduced the worm's lifespan.
It's like pressing the accelerator on aging.
Exactly. So then came the really clever test. They gave the worms the lifespan-extending caffeine, the 5 millimolar dose, but at the same time, they added adenosine back in.
Ah, so they put both in at once.
Right, and what they found was that the adenosine was able to completely reverse caffeine's benefit, and it did so in a dose-dependent way. The more adenosine they added, the more the lifespan extension disappeared.
So the brake, adenosine, overcame the blocker, caffeine. That really nails down that they're fighting over the same pathway.
It really does. And adenosine also partially reversed the drop in brood size, which confirms they're targeting the same system for both effects. It's fascinating because it really supports that this adenosine signaling pathway is a master regulator of lifespan in C. elegans, just like it is for, energy and wakefulness in us.
That's a huge connection. But, in any C. elegans longevity research, there's one pathway you just have to talk about. It overshadows everything else.
The insulin IGF-1 pathway.
The big one, the canonical aging pathway. So what about the main receptor, DAF2? Did caffeine mess with that molecular hub?
It did, and what they found here is, well, it's a real puzzle. It's very nuanced.
Okay.
So if you want a worm to live longer, the easiest way is to just disrupt D2 signaling. You can think of the D2 receptor as like a volume knob for aging.
Turn it up, you live fast and die young.
Turn it down and you extend life. And the study found that caffeine's benefit was completely dependent on a working D2 receptor.
What do you mean by dependent?
Well, they use these long-lived mutants where the DAF2 gene is already broken. Their volume knob is already turned way down.
Right. They're already living long lives.
And when they gave those worms caffeine, their lifespan actually went down slightly.
So if DAF2 isn't working properly, caffeine actually hurts them a little, meaning DAF2 has to be there for the benefit to happen.
Exactly. Which suggests caffeine is probably acting on DAF2, or at least requires it to send a signal. But here's the paradox.
Okay.
Normally, when you turn down DAF2, the thing that actually makes the worm live longer is a transcription factor called DAF16. It gets released, goes into the nucleus, and turns on all these stress resilience genes.
Right. DAF16 is the famous longevity switch.
It is. So the question was, is DAF16 essential for the caffeine effect?
And was it?
Surprisingly, no.
No.
Not at all. They tested it using mutants that can't make the DAF16 protein at all. They're totally lacking that master switch. And even without it, those worms still got the full lifespan extension from caffeine, just like the normal ones.
Hold on. So the insulin pathway has to be involved because you need DAF2.
Yes.
But the pathway's most famous downstream longevity factor, DAF16, isn't needed at all for the final outcome. That is a huge distinction that forces us to look way beyond the standard model of aging.
It absolutely does. It suggests we've found a new branch of longevity signaling. I mean, the research did show that acute caffeine exposure does tweak DAF16 a little bit.
So it is affecting the pathway.
It's affecting the pathway, but the ultimate long-term benefit from that continuous low-level caffeine seems to be mediated by other factors that are also downstream of DAF2, completely bypassing the need for DAF16.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this? This deep dive really shows that a common everyday substance like caffeine clearly modulates these fundamental aging pathways. But, and this is key, its benefits are super dependent on two things.
Dose and duration.
Keeping the dose low and making sure the exposure is continuous throughout the whole lifespan.
And we now have this amazing molecular map. First, the effect works against adenosine, which confirms that link to the body's energy status system. And second, the whole mechanism relies on the insulin signaling pathway, but in a really specific way.
It needs that DAF2 receptor.
It needs a functional DAF2 receptor, which suggests caffeine is turning down that aging volume knob. But it's doing it through a path that's totally independent of DAF16. And that opens up entirely new targets for aging therapeutics.
Which leads us to our final thought for you to explore on your own. Since this lifespan extension depends on DAF2 but not DAF16, the benefits must be coming from other downstream transcription factors that are also regulated by DAF2 signaling. The original research mentioned two potential candidates, SKN1 and HSF1. So what role might these maybe lesser-known factors play in carrying out that crucial energy reallocation we saw, the delayed development and the reduced reproduction? We'd encourage you to look into SKN1 and HSF1 next time you have a minute.
Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.
We'll see you next time.